The Coming Gattaca.
Genetics. What can it mean? The ability to perfect the physical and mental characteristics of every unborn child.
The ability of genetic engineering to choose the genes in the society.
Recently, the CDC issued its new guidelines pertaining to the vaccine that they are, as of this writing, being distributed widely throughout the world. Their opening statement was, fully vaccinated people can now spend unrestricted time indoors with other fully vaccinated people without any social distancing restrictions. In that first bullet point lies the heart of what will quickly become a new worldwide two-class system. Allow me to break this down a bit. Up until now, the general public has had to endure an endless series of inconsistent lockdowns, layer upon layer of different tests, social distancing, mixed messages about masks, cases, symptom lists, and of course people who have died with, but not necessarily from, the virus. With a single sentence from the CDC, all these pandemic issues have the potential to evaporate, like a bad dream, if you become a good citizen and take the shot. It seems simple, even logical, but at its core, there is an ethical question which will morph into a non-fictional dystopia that up until now we have only read about in science fiction novels. Some of you may see this as an exaggeration, that I'm some conspiracy theorist blowing a mere medical recommendation out of proportion. I can assure you that in less than a year from now, we will be in the middle of a massive segregation campaign that ignores race, gender, and social status, and this new class system will be entirely based on manipulated biology and eugenics. For those of you who are old enough, this idea might sound eerily familiar, and you would be right. There is nothing new under the sun when it comes to plot lines, and the fictional story that most resembles what we are facing now is the 1997 film Gattaca. In case you missed it, the film's title is a clever nod at the premise, based on the letters G, A, T, and C, which represent the 4 code letters of DNA. The story is set in the near future, where the practice of eugenics finally becomes embraced by the general public. This was accomplished by telling new couples planning on having a family that they have screened their genetics and not only discovered possible birth defects in the fetus, but long-term health issues as well. The couple is then solicited that these genetic errors can be corrected with new technology while still in the womb. While this practice may seem like playing God, the parental instinct to give birth and to raise a perfect child with no side effects is too tempting for most couples, and so they voluntarily agree to the procedure. And, as advertised, these children are born perfect, without birth defects, and suffer no long-term issues. At first, the viewer might expect these perfect people will turn into monsters and destroy their creators like all good horror stories. The real monster, however, is in what happens to society as this generation of genetically altered people grow into adulthood. Slowly but surely, a genetic registry database using biometrics is developed to classify and validate the enhanced people as valids. The children conceived by traditional means are more susceptible to genetic disorders. They are then labeled as invalids. In the movie, and our current reality, legal discrimination based on genetics is illegal, which is what you would expect. However, in the movie, genotype profiling is used to identify valids to qualify for higher-level white-collar positions, while invalids are relegated to blue-collar jobs. The short version is that if you are a better person, you deserve a better future. And this falls well within plot parameters and is exactly what I would expect over a period of time. The enhanced people are simply better at everything and will never burden a corporation with unseen health issues. This would prompt corporations to bend the rules and introduce subtle legislation to identify the good people so that they could hire them. They are worth more after all. This slippery slope would eventually lead to where the movie begins. A couple has their first child naturally, without enhancements, and he has health issues right away and is not expected to live past the age of 30. The parents don't want to repeat this with their second child and choose the enhancement option. The second son is perfect and is favored not only by the professional world but by the family itself. The natural son, desperate to prove himself, goes to extreme lengths and creates an elaborate, valid fake identity so that he can enter the space program. I know I'm giving away some spoilers here, but to be fair, the movie is almost 25 years old. If you haven't seen it by now, I highly recommend to watch, and here's my very short summary on why. In the movie, people who take the genetic-altering injections are considered first-class citizens and enjoy all the opportunities of society. Those who do not take the injections are considered second-class citizens and are restricted in almost every way. But this is just a science fiction movie several decades old. It could never happen in our current reality, right? Consider this. If we had the ability to weed out genetic disorders from unborn children and it was proven safe, would parents volunteer for the procedure? Of course they would. But of course, that is the very critical and elaborate minefield that is childbirth. We now leave the fictional world of Gattaca and arrive back here. The government has just said that vaxxed people can live their lives fully if they only spend time with other vaxxed people. And given a little time, this is exactly what they will do. Why? There is less hassle, less responsibility, less maintenance. In short, it's just easier, and that's all anyone wants to hear. Some of you have already heard the rumblings of this two-class system in your own circles. The conversations are matter-of-fact and harsh. We have taken the shot, and if you want to spend time with us, then you will have to get the shot as well. If there is a clearer example of peer pressure, I would love to hear it. Now, you might be a clever person and just lie to keep your current friends. It's true, you could keep up appearances for a while, but at some point in the near future, you will be asked to attend a gathering with them that requires proof of the vax. This is the second point I'd like to expand on. The bias that starts with friends and family becoming divided because of the injection will extend to all aspects of business and will spread quickly to everything tied to a currency system. This is because businesses have been mired in a forced financial drought for the last year and are desperate to climb back into economic recovery. These stores, arenas, and large corporations are willing to take bold steps to ensure their financial future. One of the easiest ways to accomplish this is to listen to their customer base and give the people what they want. And what their customers want is to have a safe and easy way to go about their daily lives. Social media will be watched closely, but the message that rings loudest will be, "We want to spend our money on your company, but we will spend more if you separate us from them." We did the responsible thing and were vaxxed. We are good customers, good patriots, good citizens. They are irresponsible. They are reckless. They neither care about our country or us. And that is all any large or mainstream patriotic corporation has to hear. Once the stone starts downhill, it will only pick up speed. Restaurants will allow indoor dining only to vaxxed patrons. Stores will require that you show your vaccination ID at the door. The same goes with airlines, hospitals, schools, and event centers of every kind. There will, of course, be exceptions. With a program this large, having 100% saturation is almost impossible. They will allow medical exemptions for some people who have verified issues signed off by a doctor, but even this will be conditional. You knew there was a catch, right? The only alternative to getting the shot is to be repeatedly tested, and to attend gatherings, that test will have to be negative. The rub here is that every test to date is only good for about 3 days and will have to be performed at a testing center. Those testing center locations will become fewer and fewer in number as the demand drops. This is where the annoyance factor kicks in and will wear down a number of vaccine-hesitant people. Want to go to a bar? You have to take the test within 3 days of going. How about a movie next week? Back to the center for another test. Museum with the family next month? Everyone back in for another test. This endless cycle is deliberate and diabolical. You, your spouse, and your family will constantly be aware of when your last test was. Meanwhile, your vaxxed friends have to endure none of these things and will remind you of it at every chance, if they are even still speaking to you. For those of you who thought this scenario was going to be heavy-handed, involving the government, National Guard, troops, and FEMA camps, think again. This transformation of our society will be done by your family, friends, and coworkers. The power of peer pressure can be far more effective than looking down the barrel of a gun. And it's more insidious because you're never fully prepared for it. If you want to look at more information on exactly how peer pressure works on the human mind, I highly recommend some light reading on the Ash experiment, which shows how quickly a person will go along with a group as the size of the herd grows. Yes, I use the term herd deliberately. Let's end this rant with a few small pieces of advice. Never underestimate the power of peer influence. Sticks and stones may break bones, but words can do permanent damage. To the eternal rebels, dedicated to standing their ground and who will not consent, I respect your conviction. May you find creative ways to continue the struggle. To the rest of the people, who may not know exactly what is happening around them, take note from past lessons in history and fiction. Valid, invalid. Vaxxed, non-vaxxed. The differences seem small, but the theme is the same. Segregation by any other name is just as ugly. Trust your mind, your heart, and make the decision that feels right to you.
Back now with the new push this morning for so-called vaccine passports. Airlines saying such a program would make it easier for people to travel during the pandemic. And our transportation correspondent, Gio Benitez, is at Los Angeles International Airport with more this morning. Good morning, Gio.
Hey, Michael, good morning. Yeah, with the CDC asking Americans not to travel just yet, the big question this morning is if vaccine passports right on your phone could help restart normal life. This morning, new calls for so-called vaccine passports. U.S. airlines asking the White House to develop federal guidance for temporary health credentials that would keep track of travelers' negative COVID tests and proof of vaccination.
Instead of hanging on to little pieces of paper or complicated pieces of paper, it's really just using your phone in a way that we hope will simplify things for the government and for the passengers.
So what could it do? While the airlines do not want vaccines mandated for travel, they hope the digital health pass will allow people to avoid domestic and international quarantine requirements.
I know the state of Hawaii is considering just that. If you're able to show you have the test and the vaccine, they're going to eliminate the quarantine.
The popular app Clear, which allows users to skip long lines at airports and event venues, announcing it'll soon start using its app to store vaccination records. The concept is a global one, the European Union considering these passes for people to move safely across the EU or abroad, China launching its own version Monday. And Israel already using vaccine passes, giving those vaccinated access to hotels, gyms, music venues, and even cruises. Royal Caribbean restarting vaccine-only cruises from Israel in May. Now, the CDC says that even those vaccinated should avoid travel right now, but many experts believe that guidance is going to be changing sometime soon as more people get those vaccinations. Guys, back to you.
All right, thank you, Gio. Rules seem to keep evolving. Thank you so much.